So welcome or welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. It's so greatly appreciated. Before we start, I want to give my disclaimer that please do not take what I say as fact. Please always do your own research. And I want to give a shout out to my subscriber, Allison Marie Armstrong, for suggesting this case to me. Um, I really appreciate it because I actually didn't know about this case prior to her telling me about it. And this case, this has been going on. This is like over 20 years now. This family has no closure, and it's awful. It's terrible. So um, I really appreciate, Allison, that you you thought about me to cover it. It truly means so much to me. So thank you. Thank you. Okay, Crystal Arsensdorf was born on February 1st, 1981 in Dubuque, Iowa. Hope I'm saying that right. She's a beautiful girl, 5'6", 115 pounds, with blonde hair and brown eyes. She was described as very fun, very loving, always wanting to help people. She loved to listen to music. She loved to go to the pool, lay out and tan, and to go out and to eat. She would go out to eat with her sister Jen, and Jen would say that Bonanza ended up being one of her favorite restaurants to go eat. She also loved to watch movies, and she loved to be with her family. Her mother would say that she was a very, very shy little girl. She actually would never leave her mother's side until she started getting a little bit older. Then she started coming out of her shell, and she started blossoming into the the person that she was going to, the beautiful person that she was going to become if she had been given the chance. She loved to travel, and actually, one of her favorite places to travel was to Florida. And had she actually had plans to go visit Florida with a few of her siblings right before her disappearance. She was the youngest of six full and half siblings, and at the time of her disappearance, she was working for a house cleaning business. Okay, July 3rd, 2001. 20-year-old Crystal and her sister Jen go to their friend's house to watch the fireworks. After the fireworks are over, Jen and Crystal get into Crystal's car, um, and Crystal's supposed to go pick up her boyfriend, Tim. Crystal lives with her boyfriend, Tim. And the brakes on Tim's car were not working. So Crystal was supposed to go pick him up and bring him home. So they get in the car together. A small argument ensues with Tim, and he ends up telling Crystal, forget it, I'm just going to walk home. So Crystal says, fine, walk home, whatever. Crystal ends up having her sister Jen take her and her brother's fiance Lori to Nicker's Pub on Central Ave in Dubuque, Iowa. Okay, so before we go any further, yes, she was 20, not 21. And yes, she was at a bar underage. And yes, she was drinking underage. And so what? I was doing it. I think I started doing it at like 18 years old. And I'm sure that most of you have done it also. So I say that to say, please don't make it a point to say that, to talk about the fact that she was underage and she was in a bar and she was drinking. Like, it doesn't matter, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so moving on. Lori leaves Crystal at the bar with co-workers of Crystal's mom that she knew. Then, when the co-workers leave, they leave Crystal with the bartender that she knew, Robert Moots. And Robert Moots would say that, yes, they had plans to leave together, get a cab together to go to East Dubuque after the bar had closed, because those bars stay open later. But the plans ended up falling through, and it never ended up happening. And he says that Crystal was gone before the bar closed. She had left before the bar closed. He didn't see her leave. He doesn't know when she left or who she left with. But when he finished cleaning up the bar, she was gone. After Jen took Crystal to the bar, she ended up taking Crystal's car home with her because she did not want her sister drinking and driving. Jen had Crystal's car at home with her. So the next morning, Crystal's boyfriend Tim, calls Jen looking for Crystal. And Jen says, "What are you talking about? I thought Crystal was with you. Crystal's supposed to be home with you. She's not here, and she never came to pick up her car yet." So he goes, "What was she?" So he tells Jen, "Well, she's not here." So Jen gets in, they get in the car. She picks Tim up, and they start driving around, knocking on doors and like calling people, and nobody has seen her. Okay. Jen says in her one interview, "We could not contact the police for 24 hours. That 24-hour rule. That's not true." And even I thought that was, even I believed that for a really long time. I thought that was the truth. That's not true. You can contact the police and you can report a person missing. You do not have to wait 24 hours to report somebody missing. You can literally report somebody missing like minutes after they're missing. Whether or not the police are going to do something is another story. And far too often in these cases, the family always, I feel like the family is a broken record where they always say, they call the police come, they say that the person is a runaway, and don't worry, they'll come back. And then they end up being found. And it's so infuriating. It makes me crazy. It bothers me so much that I just feel like they're always, oh, she's probably just a runaway. Oh, he's probably just a runaway. They'll come back. It's so infuriating. Anyway, so she says that they end up taking matters into their own hands, I guess, a little for the 24-hour waiting period. Jen goes to talk to police and to talk to people, that were in the bar that night, but nobody knows anything. There's no footage of Crystal leaving the bar. Nobody knows anything. Nobody saw her leave. But her car keys and her wallet were left behind at the bar. Okay? Then rumors begin to swirl around that maybe Crystal had gotten into specifically amphetamines, and maybe that had something to do with it. Her sister Jen would actually bravely share in an interview, and I say bravely because I cannot imagine that this is something easy to share, especially with the world. But Jen would bravely share in an interview that at the time of Crystal's disappearance, Jen was a recovering addict, and she had actually been sober for 8 months when Crystal disappeared, and Crystal was the person that was helping her through her sober journey. So Jen knew how much Crystal despised, and she does not believe that played any role in this disappearance. She does not believe that Crystal was dabbling in drugs because she was so against it because she saw what her sister went through. So police have four main suspects: Tim, Crystal's boyfriend Tim, the Knickers bartender Robert Moots, and these two brothers, Stephen and David Peacock, who were at the bar that night. They rule out Tim. Robert Moots pleads guilty to serving alcohol to an underage Crystal, but he ends up getting acquitted of having anything to do with her disappearance. And the brothers Stephen and David, they also end up getting acquitted. Crystal's best friend Dawn would describe her as kind, saying even if you did something that could be upsetting, she never really said bad things about people. She was generally just a kind person, loved kids, genuinely just sweet, beautiful. Her smile was infectious, and we would just lay there and laugh for hours. Her friend Nicole, who also lived near Crystal for a period of time, and actually Crystal would babysit her and her siblings from time to time, would say, I wanted to be exactly like Crystal. I just wanted to be a nice person like she was and just fun and outgoing. And I wanted her to be proud of me, to know that I took her advice always that she gave me. Crystal's sister Sean described her as a good hearted person. She's kind of quiet when you first meet her, but once you get to know her, she's actually just really down to earth, a genuinely nice person. She was always concerned about other people's feelings and always tried to go out of her way to help people out. Her brother Michael said she was a beautiful person inside and out, and that's how he wants her to be remembered, not just as someone that went missing. She had a legacy, and she was only just getting started with life. I mean, she was just 20 years old. Jennifer would say that once police did get involved, they became very active in the case. I will say that. And they they quickly realized that something was wrong. First of all, everybody in her family was saying that she would never do something like this. This was not Jennifer. But more than that, she had just gotten a new dog. So she would never just, her family said she would never just walk out on her new puppy. She loved this puppy. Okay, so Scott Engelman, who was one of the officers that assisted with the investigation, would say, we didn't have some of the technology that we have now, the traffic cameras and stuff like that. So we had weekly, if not daily meetings, strategizing and developing leads and following up on leads. Each day, additional leads were added throughout the first several weeks. They would actually follow up on like 500 leads, and every single one of them ended up being a dead end. How frustrating. Crystal's family would go walk around the town and put up flyers for her, and her sister Jennifer would say that when she wasn't down at the police station in their offices, she was walking around knocking on doors asking residents if they had seen Crystal. Jennifer would just keep saying that this is I think this is the hardest part. This is the worst part because literally I literally feel like they just need this one answer. Like if they just get this one last piece of the puzzle, they will finally be able to put closure to this 22-year nightmare. Every Jennifer would say every story nobody sees her leave. It ends right there. Nobody somebody saw her leave that bar. Somebody knows something. That's the worst part of this for me. My heart is broken for them. 20 years. Investigators would follow up on 500 leads. They searched bodies of water, patches of land, basements, garages. On several occasions, they would even bring in cadaver dogs to assist in the searches. Crystal's family, they were so desperate that they would even go to mediums to try and get answers about where Crystal was. They would just do anything. Jennifer would say that once police did get involved, they became very active in the case. I will say that. Crystal's case would end up getting picked back up by a cold case squad more than like 10 years ago, which was great because it was a fresh set of eyes on the case and we've come so far with the things that we can do now as opposed to what we were able to do 20 years ago. So they would go back to the original investigation. And Officer Randall, who was one of the officers that was leading the cold case investigation for Crystal, would say, quote, I think we'd be remiss if these guys didn't go back to look at everyone again. And part of that is to talk to everyone again, and we have done some of that, end quote. He says that they do still receive information on a somewhat regular basis. So some weeks they'll get two or three people that will call in to give them tips. And then sometimes they'll go a month or two with nothing, with nobody calling. So they can't, the tips are not consistent, but they're still coming. Officer Randall would go on to say that the people that were in and around Knickers at the time that Crystal went missing are going to be a key focus in this cold case. That's where they're going to put a lot of their focus, and I think that is, I think that's good. I'm happy about this. So, and he goes on to say that based on the time frame, there's a pool of about 12 to 15 people that should know something. And even the people that were cleared in the beginning, which would be the bartender, the boyfriend, and those two brothers, the Peacock brothers, who actually took, they did take a polygraph test, and they failed it. But there was never enough proof to charge anybody with anything. Officer Randall also goes on to say that back then, when they interviewed the brothers, they were interviewing them as suspects. This time, they're going to take the approach of interviewing them as witnesses, hoping that, they'll be able to get more information, because I suppose it makes sense that when you're being spoken to as a suspect, you're going to shut down and you're going to become more guarded, because you're going to think that they're looking at you like you did something, even if you did nothing at all, and even if you did nothing and you're completely innocent. If you think you're being looked at as a suspect, you're going to put your guard up. Absolutely, 100%. You're going to put your guard up. So he wants to go back and he's going to re-interview everybody, but this time he wants to go and talk to them as witnesses rather than talk to them as suspects, hoping that he would get more information out of them. But he says that, there are people who know what really happened that night, and nobody has come forward yet.
Missing in Dubuque. She was last seen early on July 4th, 2001, just at a bar north of downtown. KCRG TV9's Fernando Garcia Francis Cheney met with Arsensdorf's siblings as they reflected on the past 2 decades, while still hopeful they will someday get answers.
We never would have thought this could have happened to our family, and it's destroyed it.
2 long decades for Crystal Arsensdorf's family. The time that ticks by without answers. When you think about that, does it feel like it's been 20 years?
Just gonna say
feels like it was just yesterday, and then it feels like it's been forever. She pops into your head every day, and it's like, why is it still, this long?
It's been long, but her siblings, Jennifer and Michael, remember her, even as she was only 20 years ago when she was last seen.
She could light a room up with her smile.
She could. She had a gorgeous smile.
I mean, just knocked down a gorgeous smile, and it made you happy inside to see it.
They hold on tight to those memories while craving for the years they didn't get since.
Like, how would she be now, and what would she be like, and would she have kids? And
Crystal was last seen at Knickers Saloon early July 4th, 2001. The concern came when Arsensdorf did not show up for work the next morning. Investigators cleared her boyfriend at the time, as well as 2 brothers who were at the bar that night. The only charge that came was for a bartender at Knickers for serving alcohol to a minor. Her siblings say they've knocked on doors, searched lands, and worked with the police to find Crystal.
I felt like I was there almost every day, just looking over things and talking to them about what may have been and what I thought.
They say they just want closure.
We don't even have a place to remorse. We don't have a place to go where you can just sit down and say, hey, Crystal, I miss you to death,
But still, 20 years later, they are not giving up hope by hoping someone will come forward.
It's been 20 years, it's time. No matter what you have or what you know about it, it's time.
They say no tip is too small, especially when it comes to finding their beloved sister.
We miss you.
I love you. And I
think about you every day.
I think about you every day. There's not a day that we have not thought about you. And you're deeply, deeply missed, Crystal.
In Dubuque, Fernando Garcia, Francis Cheney, KCRG TV9 News.
Crystal's sister, Jennifer, would say that the disappearance of her sister has actually gotten harder over the years, saying, I think it gets worse every year, and maybe that's because I fully went into logical thinking, trying to figure it out and find her, that I didn't take the time to process it in my mind. So as the years go on, it gets harder for me. End quote. Imagine 22 years. And they don't have answers. There's not even a memorial. There's no closure because they don't know what happened to her. They've never found her. There's no body. It's not even like they have a body, but they don't know, but they can't figure out who did something to her. There's just nothing. It's awful. It's just awful. Her mom, Barb, would say that she still thinks about her daughter every single day, but she says, you've got to go on. You have to go on. I didn't think I would, but you've just got to go on. There's actually, when it was her 20-year anniversary, they actually put billboards up of her, which was, just so nice. And Crystal's mom, Barb, would actually pass it on her way to work. And she would say, if I turn my head as I'm going to work, I say good morning to her. And when I leave on my way back home, I say good night. I like it where it is now that I could see her every day. I can't imagine this. With that being said, Crystal's family members are hopeful that this case will continue to get the attention that it deserves, and they're very hopeful that getting the word out there that maybe somebody will remember something or come forward, and this case can finally be solved, not just for Crystal, but for Crystal's family. I mean, this is 22 years now that they've been left with nothing. They've just with no answers. They just don't know, and it's awful. Another detective from the major crime units has said that he's assisted with cases that are decades old that can be solved. So he's hopeful that this case will be solved. It just takes that one person to come forward and to tell that what they know, even if you think it's small. I'm asking you, everybody's, if you know anything, to call. I will put up a number for you guys. So there is a 24-hour hotline where people can leave tips or information about the disappearance of Crystal Arsensdorf. Callers can reach out anonymously or leave their name and number so police can follow up. The hotline can be reached at 563-690-6400. If you guys know anything, I highly, highly encourage you. Please say something. With that being said, please keep this family in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it so very much. I really do. And until next time, guys.
This weekend will mark 20 years since Crystal Arsensdorf went missing in Dubuque. She was last seen in the early hours of July 4th, 2001 in Nicker's Saloon in downtown Dubuque. Even though 2 decades have passed, investigators say they are not giving up hope in solving this case. KCRG TV9's Fernando Garcia Francis Cheney spoke with members of the Dubuque Police Department today and joins us now.
Nicole, authorities say this is still pretty much an open investigation. They tell me they're constantly getting new tips and leads. In fact, as recent as this past week, authorities say every tip is followed up on thoroughly. Crystal Arsensdorf was last seen at Nicker's Saloon on July 4th, 2001. Authorities say she was planning on getting a cab with a bartender to continue celebrating across the river in East Dubuque. However, authorities say no one actually saw her leave the bar. Authorities are asking people, even 20 years after, to not lose hope.
Time doesn't stop an investigation, right? So just because there is a time gap there doesn't mean that it's not going to be solved. It may make some more hurdles for us to get through, but this is still a solvable case. We believe that.
And Lieutenant McClymon says they've brought in other agencies to help out in this case, and that includes the Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation. Lieutenant McClymon says no tip is too small, and he encourages anyone who has any sort of information to call 563-690-6400. Live in Dubuque, Fernando Garcia, Francis Cheney, KCRG TV 9 News.